Good afternoon to one and all the participants of class 10E. Total 9 participants have joined my online class of today. My dear students, I have told you in my offline class, I will start the next chapter. I will start the next book, not the next chapter, another book of your syllabus. The name is Footprints Without Feet. And because it is important for your periodic test 1, so we are going to discuss about the chapter first, discuss and explain everything about the chapter. A trump of surgery is the chapter 1 of Footprints. First chapter is a trump of surgery. Trump means victory. What is the meaning of trump? Trump means victory. Victory of surgery. The name of the chapter is Victory of Surgery. This is the title of the chapter. The whole title already intact the meaning in itself of the chapter. The title completely intact the meaning of whole chapter in itself. The meaning of the chapter, the meaning of the title is the whole story is about a small dog. The name of the dog is Tricky. The whole story is about a small dog, and the name of the dog is Tricky, and the whole story hinges around the small dog, Tricky. And just you can say that Tricky is the main character of the story. Tricky is the main character, hero of the story. The dog is the hero of the story, and few sub characters are also there, also in the story. Honor of the Tricky, honor of the Tricky, and the doctor. The two sub characters are there, and few more helping hands, helping characters. And the theme of this story is the main theme of this story. If the writer is talking about the dog, if the writer is talking about the animal, the writer's main intention is to explain, is to show or to discuss about the human behavior also. And the discuss of human behavior also with the help of poetry, with the help of chapter. Okay, and so now I am going to explain all these about the chapter to you. A Trump of Surgery written by James Herriot. A Trump of Surgery written by James Herriot Anupam. My sound is audible to all?
Yes, sir.
Thanks. I think no problem in it. Okay, a Trump of Surgery. Now I am going to explain everything about the chapter. Please listen it very minutely and carefully in the class. It will help you a lot in offline class when I will start my text with you. Because very few participants are here in online class, only 7. So I am not going to discuss the text. I am going to discuss theme, about the author, about the summary, about the character of the chapter. Okay. A trump of surgery means a victory of surgery. Victory of surgery. In this story, the writer is talking about the disease or illness of a dog. Disease and illness of a dog, and how the doctor overcome on the illness of a dog, illness of a small dog, and how the owner of the dog treated well during the whole chapter, during the whole treatment of the dog at hospital. James Alfred White, known by the pen names James Herriot. James Alfred का pen name, popular name James Herriot. Pen name means popular name of James Alfred is James Herriot. I am talking about the writer, I am talking about the author. Okay, he was born on 3rd October 1916. Who was born on? The writer was born on 3rd October 1916 in United Kingdom. He was a British veterinary surgeon, British veterinary surgeon, British animal surgeon, and he was also expert in writing. He has written his own experience as a doctor in this story, and writer also. He was a British veterinary surgeon and writer both, who used his many years of experiences as veterinary surgeon to write a series of books. The writer used his experience of service to write the books of stories, to write the books or to write the stories. It means you can say that he has written all his experiences into his story. मीन्स अपने सारे एक्सपीरियंस को उन्होंने स्टोरी में फ्रेम कर दिया, जो भी एक्सपीरियंस उसको एज ए डॉक्टर गेन हुआ था होल लाइफ. Each consisting of stories about animals and their owners. Each consisting about the stories of animals and their owners and their masters. He died on 23 February 1995. The writer James Herriot died on 23rd February 1995 in United Kingdom. He was a writer, a veterinary surgeon of British and also a writer of England, British. The main theme, I am going to explain the theme. This is one of the most important part of a chapter. The main theme, what is the main theme of the chapter is? In this lesson, a trump of surgery written by James Herriot. Trump of surgery written by James Herriot. And he dwells on the theme of overindulgence and its consequences. Overindulgence and its consequences. Overindulgence means overcare. He has written this story of an owner of a small dog who overcared her dog, and after her overcaring, the dog becomes fat and like a sausage, blotted sausage. मतलब एक ओनर के ओवर केयर के कारण इतना खाना खिला दिया अपने डॉग को, उसका डॉग एकदम बलून की तरह फूल के एकदम मोटा हो गया. This is the illness of a dog, and after that she consulted with a doctor James Herriot for the treatment of his dog. Her love and care and the love and care of a person should not lead to a situation like that. मतलब love and care should not lead the situation with animals and with human beings. मतलब love and care में you should take care of your child, you should take care of your pet also, both. You should not give much more in your love, in your care. It will create a huge problem and a dangerous problem for the animal and for the human beings also. Wherein the giver and the receiver suffer mentally and physically. Giver and the receiver both will suffer mentally and physically. In this chapter, the main theme of this chapter is consequences or overcaring. Consequences of overcaring or overfeeding to the dog. Anything in excess tilts the equilibrium, thus causing chaos. Means anything excess, कुछ भी चीज ज़्यादा will create problem for us. Anything excess will create problem for us. So nothing should be in excess mode. Nothing should be excess more than the limit. Nothing should be more than the limit, even for a person or for an animal. And in this story, same thing happened. The Mrs. Pomfrey. Mrs. Pomfrey is the owner of the dog, a small dog named Tricky. And Mr. Herriot is the doctor. Name of the dog is Tricky. Mr. Herriot is the doctor, and the owner of the dog is Mrs. Pomfrey. She overcared her dog and given a lot of food to the dog time to time. And her dog became converted into a bloated sausage, converted into a round balloon. And after that, the dog became ill. And after that, she was in tension and in problem. How can she overcome the problem of her dog? So at last she consulted with the veterinary surgeon, with a veterinary doctor named James Harriet. She asked her, please do something for my dog. So from few days he becomes ill, sick, and not going to eat anything at all. Now I am going to explain the short summary of this chapter to you. It will help you a lot to understand the whole chapter, a trump of surgery. Okay, so be attentively listen to me, be attentively listen the class. And you have to be attentive in the class. A trump of surgery is about a small dog. I'm going to explain the summary, short summary of the chapter, step by step. A trump of surgery is a story about a small dog, and the name of the dog is Tricky. Tricki, Tricky. Out of love for the dog, his mistress, Mrs. Pomfrey, tended to overfeed the pet. Tended to overfeed the pet. And gradually, Tricky became obese and unhealthy. And after some time, Tricky became unhealthy. He became unhealthy. Felt sick. He hardly exercised or went out for a walk. Means he hardly exercised, move or walk. Even in the house, inside the house or outside the house. And went out for a walk due to his bloated structure, due to his round structure, heavy structure. His lack of movement worried Mrs. Pomfrey. His lack of movement, the lack of movement of a dog, worried his owner, Mrs. Pomfrey. Soon she consulted Mr. James Harriet, a veterinary surgeon, for treatment of her loving dog, for treatment of her lethargic dog. Immediately she consulted with a surgeon named James Harriet for the treatment of her dog. Mr. Harriet was shocked to see Tricky's condition and took him to the hospital. Means that the Tricky was admitted in the hospital by his mistress, in the hospital of James Harriet. मीन्स ट्रिकी को जेम्स हेरियट के हॉस्पिटल में एडमिट करवाना पड़ा, वो इतना बीमार ड्यू टू ओवरफीडिंग के कारण, ज्यादा खाने के कारण. And Mr. Harriet shocked to see the Tricky's condition. He knew Mrs. Pomfrey's overindulgence would never let her pet dog lead a healthy lifestyle. His overindulgence, overtaking care of his mistress, lead her pet dog lead a healthy lifestyle would never happen when she overindulged with her dog, when she overindulged and just giving overfeeding to the dog. And he took the dog along with him and put him on a hospital bed. Who took his dog? The doctor took his dog along with him. His doctor already took the dog of Mrs. Pomfrey along with him and put him into a hospital bed and already admitted the dog into a hospital. Hospital means in which hospital? Hospital of animals. The dog didn't move for the first 2 days and didn't eat any food either. Dog didn't move and didn't eat any food. On the third day, Tricky went outside and played with other bigger dogs in the hospital. On the third day, He started to move and started playing with other dogs of the hospital, other animals of the hospital. He started playing, he started moving. He ate the food that was given to him and also licked the balls of other dogs for the leftover food. Means the doctor had not given the proper diet to the dog in the hospital. He had given continuously 2 to 3 days only water to the dog. At the time of his breakfast lunch, he had given only water to the dog, nothing else. And so he licked the balls of other dog to survive his stomach, to fill his stomach, because he had his habit to take food time to time in his bowl. And the doctor had not given the food to the dog, continuous 2 to 3 days in the hospital to the small dog Tricky. And Mr. Harriet gave a balanced diet to Tricky along with plenty of physical exercise. Mr. Harriet gave a balanced diet. Balanced diet means complete balanced diet to the Tricky with some exercises, with some body activity, physical movement, physical activity. Gradually, Tricky's condition started improving and he started yes, and now the next part of the story is Mr. Harriet had given a very complete balanced diet to the dog Tricky and also with physical exercise. Gradually, his condition of the dog started improving and he started fighting and playing with the other dogs in the hospital and also taking his meal on the time. His mistress, Mrs. Pompey, was greatly concerned. His mistress, Mrs. Pompey, was greatly concerned with the dog, and she was always and time to time just got the news from the doctor and what is the condition of his dog in the hospital. Always time to time taken news from by the phone and by the other message activities. And Mrs. Pumphrey was greatly concerned about the well-being of his little dog Tricky. To provide adequate nutrition, she had also advised to the doctor to provide complete nutrition to his dog in the hospital. She would send eggs so that her pet didn't starve and receive enough energy to recover from the treatment. So she would send eggs to the hospital, eggs to provide complete to provide complete nutrition of his dog. According to her, it will help him in the recovery from the illness. And however, James Harriet, his parents would eat the eggs daily for the breakfast. He would send, but the doctor had not given to the dog two eggs every day. And the James Harriet and his parents just ate eggs every day in the breakfast. But apart from that, he has given to the dog. Means the dogs के लिए जो अंडे भेजे जाते थे वो अंडे जेम्स हैरियट और उसके पेरेंट्स खाते because he knew that this eggs again create illness for the dog, for the small dog. So he had not given the dog to the eggs. Further, Mrs. Pompey also sent bottles of wine to enrich Tricky's blood. And after a few days, she also sent bottles of wine to provide the wine to the dog, to enrich the blood level of the dog. But this again was confused Mr. Harriet and his parents. Again, this was confused. Firstly, she had sent eggs, and after that, she had sent bottles of wine. So they were confused. If the dog of Mrs. Pomfrey was completely ill due to the overeating, overfeeding, apart from that, say it's sending the same things again and same things happen here with. And the doctor James Harriet couldn't provide all these to the dogs. He and his family, doctor and his family, taken eggs in the morning breakfast every day, apart from giving to the dog. Wine also taken by the doctors and the doctor and his family. And he felt sorry for eating the food that was sent by Mrs. Pomfrey for Tricky. He felt sorry. Why? Because he felt very sorry because Mrs. Pomfrey sent these things to the dog. But he has taken all these. The doctor has taken all these. Doctor and his family has taken all these for his personal sake, for his personal benefit. He was sorry also, and he was unable to give the same things to the dog again and the same thing happened here with again to the dog if he had given the same. अगर दोबारा उसे दिया गया तो फिर वो मोटा का मोटा ही रह जाएगा और ठीक नहीं हो पाएगा. उसकी बीमारी थी उसका ओबेसिटी, ओवर ईटिंग. And Mrs. Pomfrey for Tricky, but they couldn't be vested either. It was not suitable for the dog who was now getting back on its feet. He was not given the same thing to the dog because this will not help the dog to improve the health. As the little dog started showing interest, signs of improvement in eating and signs of improvement, the veterinary decided to call Mrs. Pomfrey over, for she was worried about her pet's condition. So he called her mistress, called the mistress of the dog. When she arrived in the hospital to fetch her pet, Tricky was very happy and jumped onto her. Tricky was very happy and jumped onto his mistress. And Mrs. Pomfrey was filled with gratitude towards Mr. Harriet. She was completely grateful towards the doctor, Mr. Harriet, for curing her dog, and felt she could not thank him enough for the miracle, for curing her dog. And she could not think of any miracle he had done for the dog. She felt this was indeed a trump for the surgery. What the doctor had done for the dog, what the doctor had done for the Mrs. Pomfrey, done for the dog of Mrs. Pomfrey. And she felt that this was indeed a trump of surgery for the doctor, victory of surgery for the doctor, victory of treatment of the doctor. She felt that it was really a victory of treatment. Now his dog became completely fit and fine. And so he thinks and she thinks and understood. And this is the short summary of the first chapter of Your Moments, A Trump of Surgery by James Harriet.